Good evening. I'm Margaret Nelson. I'm the Executive Director of the River Center in Peterborough, and we are a United Way agency. So this is Live United, where we talk about giving, advocating, and volunteering in our communities throughout the region. So today we're going to talk about the Employment Resource Center at the River Center, and I just want to first start by telling you a little bit about the River Center. The River Center is a family and community resource center. We're located in Peterborough, and we serve the towns and communities of the eastern Monadnock region. Our mission is to strengthen individuals and families, and we do that through parenting support, economic opportunity programs, and community outreach. So what does that look like? Well, parenting programs mean we have a lot of parenting classes. We have parent educators with years of experience that help families and parents be the best they can be. So we have classes that meet at the River Center at 46 Concord Street in Peterborough. We have classes that meet in Jaffrey, in New Ipswich. We have a little group that meets in Greenville as well. So they meet and talk about a variety of issues that impact parents who are raising babies, toddlers, and teens. We also have a home visiting program for at-risk pregnant women and their babies. The home visitor visits people in their homes, helps them with whatever they need to support their pregnancy and to learn about that little one who's coming to live with them. Our economic opportunity programs include our Employment Resource Center, which we are going to talk more extensively about today, as well as our Money Matters program. Money Matters program includes our free tax preparation program. This year, we are almost done with our fourth year in which we will have more than $1 million coming back to individuals through this program. Last year, over 900 people got their taxes done, and that was $1.1 million in refunds that came to those people. We do money coaching, and then we have our community connections. That means people can call us at 924-6800, or they can walk into our offices at 46 Concord Street, and they can ask us for help. A variety of issues come up. People, when they don't know where else to go, they say, we'll call the River Center, and they'll help us connect with the services that they might need in the community. We also have a wood bank. We have a babysitting class for 11 to 14-year-olds. We have a variety of community talks and information nights that will be helpful to people. So we are indeed a resource center for families and the community in the eastern Monadnock region. So today I want to introduce Laura Siebert. Laura is our employment and outreach specialist at the River Center, and she is going to talk to us about our Employment Resource Center. So can you tell us, what is the Employment Resource Center? What are we trying to do there?
Well, the Employment Resource Center is it's an organization or part of the organization that offers hope and help for individuals that are looking for work and they're in their job search process, or perhaps they're at the very beginning of their job search. We offer job search counseling, resume help, interviewing skills, working with your LinkedIn profile and social media. How do you do a job search? What do I want to do? All of these questions we can sit, listen, talk, be a support system for you, and work through the process.
You see a lot of different people who are in the job search, don't you? I know that you've seen 19-year-olds who really don't have any work history, and you help them put together a resume. You've seen folks that thought they would be enjoying retirement, and now they find they really need to get back in the job search. So what are some of the unique issues that these folks they need help with?
You're right. I do. I see a diverse group of people, 18-year-olds that have never worked before. Maybe they have some volunteer service, but they're looking to start their careers. An 84-year-old woman that just came in and wanted to return to nursing. So there's really no preset to who comes in. Anyone is welcome. As a matter of fact, I love working with a diverse group. It's fun for me. So needs are very unique. Everybody has a different set of needs depending on where they are and what they're doing or what their skill sets are. But what I would recommend is when you're in the job search, one is it's not an easy time and you're not alone. There's a lot to it. There's emotional roller coasters, and coming in and just talking about the process, talking about where am I going to go next, is going to help, I think. A lot of people, well, at least that's the feedback I get, is that it helps them. So if you're in the job search process, I think the first thing you want to ask yourself is, what am I good at? What do I want to do? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Do I want to stay in the career that I'm in, or is this an opportunity for me to switch gears? How about relocation? Am I willing to relocate, or if not, what's the span that I can comfortably commute? This is going to set the structure for your job search. And those will be the first questions that I ask somebody when they first come in to chat with me.
That's great. That's great. So very often you're seeing people that they may be entering the job force. They may be someone who has stayed home with the kids, or for some reason they have not been in, they've done a lot of volunteer work, but they haven't been working for a number of years. They might be the retiree who's had a career and is looking for phase two. They could be someone who's realizing that they really need to get a job that is paying them better in order to meet their needs of their family. Variety of reasons. So if someone is done a lot of volunteer work, for instance, and we know that in our United Way agencies, many volunteers, how do they start billing themselves as an employable person if most of what they have is life skills, shall we say?
Well, and that's not an uncommon situation. So I then hone in on, or help them hone in on, what are the strengths, what are their skills that they've obtained, or what are their natural strengths to transfer into a job that they're looking at, that they're interested in. And often people don't realize how many skills they really do have and that they've possessed through the experience of volunteer work.
What would you say to the stay-at-home mom who now wants to go back to work? How would you translate some of her mom skills into a resume? What would be some of the ways you would describe that?
Well, I just actually had the occasion to meet with two different women that are returning to the workforce after a long time out of the workforce. And again, I go back to, well, what are the types of things that you were doing with your kids, or volunteering in the community? What are those strengths? So the resume is really focused on strengths and accomplishments. And we talk about organizational skills. We talk about multitasking. We talk about perhaps they've done some project work with an organization and they had to organize that, or time management. So anything that we can pull that's going to apply to that position that they're looking for. And if they have a specific job that they're looking for, that's even better, because we can really take the resume and hone it specifically for that position.
That's great. So how many times do you hear, I don't have any skills?
Quite often, and it's amazing. So many people struggle with confidence, and confidence is such a key part of being successful in the job search. I mean, really what you're doing is marketing yourself to an employer. Why are you the person they should be hiring for this. And if you don't have the confidence underneath that all, it makes it really hard. So a lot of what we do is just talk about all the things. So often people will say, I don't have really any skills or strengths. And then we start talking, and it's clear by the end of the conversation that yes, indeed they do. You know, everybody has strengths. It's just finding what they are. And I would say that across all of the people that I see, you know, there's a common theme in, especially if you've been looking for work for a period of time, there's a feeling of hopelessness or a feeling of just feeling straight out frustrated with the process. They've put their resumes in or they've applied for jobs countless times and they haven't gotten a call back, or they have and they've gone for the interview and never heard back, or they didn't get the position. And that really does, that just having that impacts confidence over a period of time. So I think persevering through that can be challenging, but I think there are ways that we can there are things that we can do to help with the stress of that and and persevering.
So what would you recommend? What are some of the things you can do to help alleviate that stress and sort of, I remember just having this, I don't really want to get up this morning because it's just back into the job search again. So what's some advice for people who are in that job search?
So the obvious is work out, get something physical, go for a hike, take the dog for a walk, but just physically get your little bit of exercise and release some of that in that way. But also, you know, complete a project at home. If you can afford to do that, it could be small, it could be large, but just that feeling of accomplishing something is going to probably help, as long as it's not too stressful of a project.
Yes.
But also joining a group, joining networking out there with a job association or a town committee. That's going to get you out and not only meeting other people and just being out there in the public and keeping you kind of from just drawing into the house, but it also allows you to network, and networking is probably the most important way to find a job, especially in this area.
So it's really true that very often employers will hire somebody they know
Absolutely.
or know about.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And often their employers will not necessarily post formally on a job search board. They may be just putting it out through their feelers. They may be working through a recruiter. They may be just letting their friends know. And so it's opening up the opportunity for you to hear about other jobs. And actually, I just worked with a woman a couple of weeks ago who was looking for work and struggling to find work in her career field and in the area. And she's on a committee, a town committee, and through this committee she met an individual, and she's now through just conversation with this individual, they're embarking on starting a nonprofit organization here in town, and she's thrilled. And coincidentally, she met another woman that I had met with previous weeks, and they are working together. They just happen to connect, and they see that their skill sets are going to balance really well with what they need, and so they're pursuing this, and that's wonderful.
That's great. And I was thinking another advantage to networking and getting to know people and volunteering in the community, a big advantage of that is you're also building somebody who can give you a reference and
Absolutely.
say, yes, this person showed up when they said they were going to show up, and they worked hard, and they offered ideas, and all of that is really, really important for a future employer to know. And we can build that sort of credibility through volunteer work as well, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's all going to count on. You can use it on the resume. You know, volunteer work isn't ideal on the resume, but it does. If you're short on work experience, it's going to help fill at least paint the picture for the person who's reviewing your resume. Who are you and what do you bring to the table? Another option is to take a class, and I want to let people know that there are a lot of free online trainings available out there, and I'd be happy to share that with anybody. Just give us a call. We'll post our phone number and our email address later in the program, but give me a call or email me, and I'd be happy to share. There's just a number of great resources online.
Well, and that's a good point to interject, that we are available for people to call us at 924-6800, or go to our website at www.rivercenter.us. We'd be happy to have you meet with Laura or give you more information about your job search. There are some opportunities for workshops at the River Center that you will pull together for people. I know that when I was job hunting, a lot of jobs indicated you had to be experts at Microsoft Office, and that was very daunting to me because I wasn't. So what kind of little workshops can we offer people?
Job readiness workshops is generally what we focus on. So that can look like, computers 101. Boy, I don't even barely know what a mouse is, let alone how to attach a file to an email, which is critical actually now in application process, because you're attaching a resume to an email or a resume to an online application form. So these are basic skills that you're really going to need for that job search process. So we can cover the basics. We could do an Excel workshop. How do you write a strong resume? What does that look like? So what we really try and do is get out into the communities and get a feel for what the need is, and then we customize our trainings for that need. But one of the biggest things that one of the things I work with quite often with people are resumes. So I want to spend a little bit of time on what makes a powerful resume.
Great. Yeah, that's a huge thing. So what does make a powerful resume?
So I think there's some key things that you can apply or use when you're putting together a resume that's going to allow your resume to stand out. First and foremost is formatting. You've got to get the formatting right, and you've got no grammatical errors, no spelling errors. This is just basic stuff. So, but the common theme is that a recruiter or an HR person or somebody, a hiring manager who's looking at your resume, is going to give it about 30 seconds, and that's generous, before they make an assumption on whether you're going to be a good candidate.
That is not very much
time. No.
30 seconds. I mean, you put so much work into figuring out how to wordsmith these documents. 30 seconds.
Right.
Doesn't get them very far down the page.
Right. Yeah, it's true. So how are you gonna put that information on the paper to catch the eye?
So should I do it on like hot pink with flowers
Absolutely
in
not.
the corners?
No, I mean that would definitely catch their attention.
I could soak it in perfume or something, so it really,
No. I would not recommend that necessarily, but or even a photo of yourself, unless it's a very specific kind of job. And you're a beautiful woman, Margaret, but I think
yeah, she has to say that. Okay, yeah.
But I would say there's a general rule of top left corner. So use top. So the highlight the important stuff you want them to see first, bold, top left. That's where our eye tends to go. So everything's sort of focused that generally down the page on the top left, and then there are there are many different styles of resumes, but there's the job responsibilities where you're listing out your responsibilities that you've done in the past at previous positions, and that's fine. But to really stand out from the group is to focus on your accomplishments. Focus on all the high marks that you maybe got at a performance review or a project that you succeeded in completing. And I would say that if you can quantify those accomplishments, that's even more powerful a statement. So for instance, if you were to make a statement, you increased customer base by 15% within 2 months' time by ... whatever that is that your job did, that's a powerful statement that's going to stand out. It's telling the reviewer that you accomplished something in that job. So now he or she knows the skills that you've needed to do that, as well as that you've actually achieved things.
So many times when we're putting together our resumes, the thing that really gets in our way is we feel like we're bragging about ourselves on paper. How do we get beyond the, I need to put my best foot forward and really present myself with my skill sets, but I don't want to come across as being somebody who's so full of myself that nobody would ever want to work with me. What's that balance?
You know, I think in this case, it's not about bragging. And I think if you focus on the facts, you focus on your achievements and the tasks or responsibilities that you've done, then it's not about bragging. It's just about stating the facts. Right.
Okay, that's good. That's good because I think that does. I think that's one of the reasons it's wonderful to have someone like you help put together that resume, because you're not bragging, and you know that you're the objective person looking at someone, and that is a really helpful thing. What else do they need to know about their resumes? Should they, if they've had many years of experience, is a 3-page resume ever appropriate?
If they have many years of experience, that can happen occasionally.
You seem somewhat
but I'm
hesitant
reluctant
here.
to say, because I think that you can summarize or capture what you need to within 2 pages, and 2 pages
Of, you know, like really tiny print?
Yeah, well, you don't want it so small that the poor reviewer, and I've got to say that I was a reviewer at one time. I come from an HR background, so I was on the other receiving end of many, many, many resumes, and so I can say that when I got something that was a really small type, it didn't make me want to read it. So,
okay, well, those are good things to know.
But I think that 2 pages is appropriate, and if you can fit it on one, that's ideal.
Great, because we're keeping in mind we've got 30 seconds to tell our story.
Right, that's right.
In most cases. Right. So I see a note here that how to make this stand out. You've talking about your achievements. What else is going to make, if I know there is probably literally hundreds of people who are going to be vying for a job, but it just sounds like my ideal job and I'd love to do this, how can I separate myself out? What about that cover letter or the cover email, as it very often is these days? What am I going to say about myself there?
I think you're going to do the same thing you did in the cover letter, succinctly, in your resume. And I want to reiterate how important it is for a resume to be tailored for a position. So if it's a position you really, really want, that resume should really, all of the skills that are needed for the position, all the requirements should be highlighted specifically so that you're standing out and you're saying, this is exactly why I believe I'm a perfect fit for the position. And so also in the cover letter or in the body of an email when you reach out to the hiring manager, you open it with introducing yourself, how you maybe heard about the job posting, if you were referred to the position, or if you know somebody within their organization. I think that's a great place to
so
insert
you can
that.
throw names around if
Absolutely,
appropriate.
absolutely, because the first thing that HR person or that hiring manager is going to do is walk over to so-and-so and check you out. And that's powerful if you've got a good relationship
Well, I
with
was
them.
just going to say it would
That's
be
powerful.
important that you know that they would give a good
Yes.
word for you.
And
Yes.
you may want to talk to them first before, hey, I found this job. Do you mind if I use your name? That's going to prepare them so they're not surprised if somebody comes up to them and asks about you. Then the body of that cover letter, and again, succinct, you want it to be brief, but you want to say why you believe, very quickly, why you believe you're a great candidate for the position, referring back to your resume, but not repeating everything that's on there. And then a closing sentence, just, I hope to hear from you soon. Here's how I can be reached. And it's okay to say I may follow up with you in a week or so.
I was just going to say that because very often these resumes go off into the Netherlands and we never ever hear anything. What's appropriate in terms of follow-up? Calling, emailing, once, twice? What's the polite?
Well, I would say that if it's a posting where they've asked you to email them your resume in the first place, then an email follow-up is appropriate. If it's a call, and occasionally it is, then a phone call is appropriate. But either way, it's totally within bounds to follow up if you haven't heard anything in a week to a week and a half, 2 weeks. Depending on the number of resumes they're receiving, applications, it very well could take a couple of weeks for them to respond and coordinate interviews. It just depends on the nature of the job. So do follow up. And I would say that if you have the opportunity to get an interview, there's an awful lot that you can do to be prepared.
And what would you do to prepare for an interview?
Well, preparing is number one, the key thing, right, is knowing the organization, knowing the company that you're applying to. Do some research. Go on their website, know the market, know their competitors, know what they make if they're making something. You also want to know the details. Ask the details. So if somebody's invited you in, what time, who's going to be there, how long do you anticipate we're going to be chatting? Where do you want me to park? How do you want me to enter the building? These are going to just help you out so much that day so you're not frantic. Usually
And it's okay to call and ask those kind of questions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then just so get the logistics down. Maybe you might want to just do a drive-by. Make sure you know where the building is located
And
first.
I would add that don't be late for
Don't
that
be
interview.
late. Get there a little early. Don't get there too early.
Sit in the parking
So,
lot if you have to.
If you
Yes.
have to, right. And that might be good. That might be good just to give you some quiet time to get your head straight, get your thoughts straight. But definitely 5 minutes early is fine, 10 minutes, okay, any more than that, and the person's just not going to be ready for you. And you'll be sitting and waiting inside. So be prompt, absolutely. That's key, and that's number one when they're looking at are you going to be reliable and timely. That's important. Also, review the job posting if it's been formally posted. Know what they're looking for in a candidate and be thinking about your skills and transferable skills and experiences that relate back to those requirements and what they're looking for in a candidate. And then think about things you've done, accomplishments, be detailed, be specific when you're trying to link them into the interview. And so have already prepared stories that go into why
you'd be the best
candidate.
And be convinced yourself. I think that is very
convinced.
important that we convey that we really are confident that we could do this job and be fabulous at it. And that confidence will convey itself to the employer.
Absolutely. And be prepared in when you're planning what you're going to say to be succinct. And practice. It's okay to practice in advance how you're going to say these things so that you can say them in a succinct way that isn't going to run on for 20, 30 minutes.
So is that something, on occasion, you get asked to do that sort of thing, to help somebody kind of run through a practice run with an interview? And so that's another reason to call and chat with Laura to find out what kind of help. I've got the interview, now what do I do? How do I research? We don't all know how to do that. And so those are helpful. Let's see, what other things do we really want to leave our audience with this morning, this evening?
Well, I actually think that we also want to talk a little bit about following up from the interview. We talked about following up from the application, but I think it's really important that you follow up for the interview. But before I even say that, I want to talk about closing the interview.
Yes.
Sometimes when I was interviewing somebody, the best part was what kinds of questions did they ask? What did they want to know about me, the hirer, or our company? And if they didn't have any questions, that was a red flag for me. Or I would just assume that I did my job so well as an interviewer that they just, they didn't have any more questions. But I just wrote down a couple of questions that I think are really strong. So I'm going to read them. What are your most important skills for this position? So when you're asking as a candidate, you're asking the manager or the hiring group, the hiring team, what do you feel are the most important skills for the team,
yes.
for this position? And then, do you feel I have them? It's a very matter-of-fact way of getting some direct, timely feedback right then and there. And if they're honest, they're going to give you some feedback, and you'll have a really good sense walking out of there on whether you are going to be a good fit.
One of the things I remember I asked in an interview that I was in one time, I said, at the end, I said, who are you looking for? Mm-hmm. And then I was able to, once they described their ideal candidate, then I was able to speak right into that and say, this is why I fit that bill.
Right.
And that was a great opportunity for me to really address what they were looking for. So those are good. Those are
Absolutely.
good questions. How many times, what do? You've had the interview. I've been on interviews where I went home and I never heard from anybody again. Mm-hmm. What should they do? How long should they wait? And then what should they do?
Right. So this is such a balancing act, isn't it? Again, you should follow up, but you don't want to be right in their face really fast. So number one, a thank you note. A thank you note is critical. So write a handwritten thank you, or at minimum an email to the group. If you can get the contact information for everyone that was in the interview, send them each a thank you for their time and that you appreciated their meeting with you, asking great questions. Be specific if you can. And that should happen within 48 hours or thereabouts. And then a follow-up with an email or a phone call, I'd say a week and a half to 2 weeks. You really don't want to do too much. Don't push too soon before that, because it takes time for them to get through the process. And often they may even tell you, so we have a couple more candidates that we're interviewing, and that may be, some people are very clear on their timeline, and other organizations are a little loose and they have a little bit more hoops they have to go through. And it's okay to ask that question, where are you in your process at the end of the conversation, at the day of the interview.
Good. So there are many, many, many things that we could talk about, and everybody's job search is so unique and individual to them. Their experiences have been different, the kinds of jobs they're going for are different. So we just want to make sure that you know that the Employment Resource Center is available to anyone. It is a free service offered through the River Center in Peterborough. You don't have to live in Peterborough or even in any of the Eastern Monadnock region. You could come to us, call us, and come out and visit and have an appointment with Laura. She'd be happy to go over help you build a resume, help you tell your story. So in closing, we would just like to remind you that we are at 924-6800. Our website is www.rivercenter.us. And we want to say just a word about what's coming up. We have our major fundraiser for the year at the River Center is a spelling bee. This year we will be celebrating the 10th annual Community Spelling Bee on May 1st at the Peterborough Players. And that is a fundraiser specific to the River Center. So we'd just like to encourage you to come, have some fun with us on May 1st. And we would love to have you there. If you like to spell, call us. We're looking for teams. These are teams of 3 people. And you can go on our website and get some pictures from past years. But we'd love to have you join us. And we are so thankful to have been able to be here and talk with you about your job search on Live United, where we talk about give, advocate, and volunteer. So thank you so much for listening.